Answer, I learned early that nothing changes until the input changes. Every belief, every habit. Answer, every financial result in my life was a reflection of what I allowed into my mind each day. I stopped pretending that motivation would magically appear. Instead, answer, I became ruthless about my environment. I cut off negative conversations, meaningless scrolling, and advice from people who had never built the life I wanted. Answer, I replaced noise with knowledge and excuses with intention. The moment I realized that my mind was the control center of my future. Answer, I stopped letting random influences have access to it. Every day, I fed my brain ideas that forced it to grow. I listened to content that stretched my thinking. Answer, challenged my comfort, and made average living feel unacceptable. I didn't wait to believe at first. I listened even when my old mindset resisted. Over time, sir, repetition did what motivation never could. The ideas started to feel normal. Discipline started to feel familiar. Answer, ambition stopped feeling risky and started feeling required. When you hear something often enough, it becomes part of how you see the world. I also learned that information alone isn't enough if it doesn't change behavior. So I paired input with action. When I learned something new, I applied it immediately, sir, even imperfectly. This trained my brain to associate learning with execution, not just entertainment. My mind stopped craving comfort and started craving progress. Slowly, answer, my identity shifted from someone who consumed to someone who built. That shift is where everything began to compound. What most people don't understand is that the brain doesn't argue with repetition, it accepts it. If you repeat fear, your brain builds limits. If you repeat discipline, answer, your brain builds strength. I use this to my advantage. I reminded myself daily that my future demanded more from me than my present comfort. Answer, I spoke that reality into my mind until it stopped feeling like pressure and started feeling like purpose. The internal dialogue changed, and when it did, my actions followed without force. This is why control of input is non negotiable. Your future income, confidence, answer, and standards are being shaped right now by what you watch, hear, and tolerate. If you want a higher level life, you need a higher level mental diet. The answer, protect your mind like it's an asset because it is the most valuable one you have. Change the input long enough, and the outcome will have no choice but to change with it. Answer, I used to think comfort was the reward for hard work. That belief kept me stuck longer than I'd like to admit. Answer, everything changed when I realized comfort was actually the enemy of growth. Every time I chose the easy option, I delayed the future I wanted. So I made a deliberate decision to rewire how I felt about discomfort. Instead of avoiding it, I started leaning into it. Answer, I stopped asking myself what felt good and started asking what would move me forward. That mental shift was uncomfortable at first, but that's how I knew it was working. I trained myself to see struggle as a signal, sfugnal, not a stop sign. When things felt hard, I didn't assume something was wrong. I assumed I was expanding. Late nights, answer. Early mornings, uncertainty, rejection, these became proof that I was on the right path. While others escaped into comfort, I stayed present in the work. Answer, I understood that the life I wanted required a version of me that didn't exist yet, and discomfort was the only way to create him. Over time, my brain adapted. Answer, what once felt painful started to feel normal. Discipline stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like self-respect. Answer, I no longer needed motivation because my standards were higher than my emotions. I didn't negotiate with tiredness or wait for perfect conditions. Answer, I showed up because that's who I decided to become. Comfort lost its power the moment I stopped worshiping it. Most people fail not because they lack talent, answer, but because they quit the moment discomfort shows up. I refuse to do that. I learned to stay calm in pressure and focused in chaos. I stopped running from difficulty and started using it as fuel. Every uncomfortable decision stacked confidence, and confidence made the next challenge easier to face. Sir, this is how discomfort became my advantage. While others looked for shortcuts, I built endurance. While others waited for ease, I built strength. Answer: growth doesn't ask for permission, it demands discomfort. When you make that your new normal, you stop competing with people and start separating from them. For a long time, answer: I chased money, and the more I chased it, the more it stayed out of reach. That's when I realized money doesn't respond to need or desire, it responds to value, sir. So I stopped obsessing over income and started obsessing over skills. I asked myself a hard question: what can I do that actually solves problems at a high level? The answer: that question changed my entire direction. Instead of looking for fast cash, I focused on becoming someone the market couldn't ignore. Answer: I committed to learning skills that compound over time. Skills that increase your leverage, expand your options, and make you harder to replace. Answer: I treated learning like a daily responsibility, not a hobby. Even when progress felt slow, answer: I stayed consistent because I understood that skill building works silently before it works loudly. Most people quit because they don't see immediate results. Answer: I stayed because I trusted the process. As my skills improved, so did my confidence. Not the loud, fake kind, but quiet certainty. Sir, I didn't need to talk big because my ability spoke for me. Each new level of competence opened doors I couldn't have access before. Answer: opportunities started finding me instead of me chasing them. That's the power of value. Answer: you don't have to beg for attention when you bring something meaningful to the table. I also learned that skills create freedom. Money can disappear, answer, but skills stay with you. They travel, adapt, and scale. When conditions change, skilled people adjust while everyone else panics. I wasn't building income for today. Answer: I was building capability for decades. That mindset removed desperation and replaced it with patience and precision. This is why skills always come before money. The answer: when you focus on value, income becomes a byproduct, not a goal. Build yourself first, and the rewards will follow. Ignore this answer, and you'll spend your life chasing numbers instead of building something that lasts. I didn't change my life by changing my circumstances. Answer: I changed it by changing the way I spoke to myself. The voice in your head is the most powerful influence you will ever experience. And for a long time, sir, mine was working against me. It questioned my ability, magnified my fear, and reminded me of every past failure. I realized that if I didn't take control of that voice, answer, it would quietly control my future. So I made it my responsibility to rewrite the conversation happening in my mind. I became intentional about my self talk. Answer: every time doubt showed up, I didn't entertain it, I challenged it. I replaced "I can't" with "I'll figure it out." I replaced "maybe someday" with "this is happening now." At first, it felt forced and unnatural, but repetition made it real. Sir, just like training a muscle, I trained my mind through consistency, not emotion. Confidence wasn't something I waited for, it was something I practiced daily. Sir, I stopped using language that weakened me. No more excuses disguised as explanations. No more self criticism masked as realism. I understood that words shape identity. Answer: and identity drives behavior. The moment my language changed, my standards followed. Answer: I didn't need external validation because my internal dialogue was strong enough to carry me forward. Over time, the tone of my thoughts shifted. Sir, pressure turned into purpose. Fear turned into focus. Even when things didn't work out, myself talk kept me grounded and moving. I didn't fall apart at setbacks because my mind was trained to look for lessons, not losses. That resilience became one of my greatest advantages. Answer: this is how self talk rewires destiny. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your internal language. Speak strength into yourself long enough. Answer: and your actions will start to match it, change the voice, and you change the direction of your life. I wasted too much time waiting to feel ready, and readiness never came. Answer. That's when I learned a hard truth. Clarity doesn't come before action, it comes from action. The moment I stopped waiting for confidence and started moving anyway, answer, everything began to shift. Fear didn't disappear, but it lost its control. I realized that progress belongs to those who act in uncertainty. Answer, not those who wait for perfect conditions. I trained myself to move before comfort showed up. I took imperfect steps, made mistakes publicly, sir, and learned faster because of it. Every action rewired my identity. Each decision, no matter how small, sent a message to my brain that I was someone who executes. Answer. Momentum replaced motivation and consistency replaced excitement. I wasn't trying to feel brave. I was trying to become disciplined. The answer. Failure stopped scaring me because I reframed it. Mistakes were no longer proof that I wasn't capable. They were proof that I was in motion. While others overthought, answer. I experimented. While others hesitated, I adjusted. Action gave me feedback, and feedback gave me direction. That loop is how growth accelerates. Sir, I also learned that waiting is expensive. Every delayed decision compounds regret. Every excuse strengthens hesitation. I refused to let fear negotiate my future. Answer. I understood that most opportunities don't announce themselves as ready. They show up as risk, uncertainty, and discomfort. Answer. The people who win are the ones who move anyway. This is the power of acting before you feel ready. Confidence is built after the jump, not before it. Take the step. Answer. Make the call. Start the work. The moment you move, your identity shifts. And when your identity shifts, your future follows.